What if the only thing standing between you and the life you've been begging for is your inability to stop chasing it? Imagine discovering that every moment of panic, every desperate attempt to control your future, has been silently pushing your greatest miracle farther away. Today, you'll uncover why the mind creates resistance when it fears uncertainty, why true transformation begins the moment you relax, and how allowing instead of forcing can unlock possibilities that once seemed completely impossible. If this message is changing the way you see yourself and the invisible forces shaping your life, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future insights into the hidden psychology of transformation, inner peace, and personal growth. And if someone you care about has been exhausting themselves trying to control every outcome, share this video with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear today. Every human being has experienced the exhausting urge to force life into a particular shape. We tell ourselves that if we think harder, work harder, worry more, or control every detail, the future will finally cooperate. Yet beneath this endless effort lies an invisible tension. The mind becomes convinced that what it desires is absent, and every desperate action silently reinforces that belief. Instead of moving toward peace, we become trapped in a cycle of anxiety, where every delay feels like proof that something is wrong. Ironically, the harder we grip the future, the more distant it seems to become. This happens because the unconscious mind responds less to the words we speak and more to the emotional state we repeatedly inhabit. When your thoughts are dominated by fear, urgency, and desperation, your inner world begins organizing itself around those emotions. You become hyper-aware of obstacles, setbacks, and signs of failure. Opportunities that once existed remain invisible because your attention is consumed by what is missing. It is not that life is punishing you. Rather, your perception has narrowed under the weight of inner resistance, making possibilities harder to recognize. Consider how nature unfolds. A seed does not struggle to become a tree by pulling at its own roots. It rests in darkness, allowing unseen processes to perform their work before anything visible appears. Human transformation follows a remarkably similar rhythm. Growth rarely happens through constant force. Instead, it develops in quiet moments when trust replaces panic and patience replaces obsession. What appears inactive on the surface is often the period in which the deepest changes are taking place beneath awareness. This is why relaxation is far more powerful than most people realize. Relaxation is not laziness or surrendering your dreams. It is the deliberate release of unnecessary psychological resistance. When the mind becomes calm, creativity expands, intuition grows clearer, and decisions become wiser. Instead of reacting from fear, you begin responding from clarity. The energy once wasted on controlling every outcome becomes available for meaningful action. Doors that seemed permanently closed often reveal themselves not because the world suddenly changed, but because your perception finally became open enough to notice them. The hidden cost of forcing outcomes is that it quietly convinces you that your peace depends on external circumstances. But genuine transformation begins the moment you reverse that belief. When inner calm becomes your foundation instead of your reward, the impossible no longer feels so distant. You stop chasing life with clenched fists and begin walking toward it with quiet confidence. And in that state of deep inner trust, what once seemed impossible often arrives naturally, not because you forced it into existence, but because you finally stopped standing in its way. One of the greatest misunderstandings about inner peace is the belief that relaxing means giving up. The modern world praises constant struggle, endless productivity, and relentless effort, teaching us that if we stop pushing for even a moment, we will fall behind. As a result, many people carry tension as if it were a badge of honor. They believe anxiety proves commitment and that exhaustion is evidence of ambition. Yet beneath this constant pressure, the mind becomes clouded, emotions become unstable, and the very strength they seek slowly begins to disappear. True relaxation is something entirely different. It is not the absence of action, but the absence of unnecessary inner conflict. Imagine an experienced archer preparing to release an arrow. If every muscle is tense and the grip is too tight, the shot becomes unstable. But when the body is balanced and the movement is calm, the arrow travels with precision. Life works in much the same way. The most effective actions often arise from a peaceful mind rather than a desperate one. Calm does not weaken your ability to act, it sharpens it. The unconscious mind constantly absorbs the emotional atmosphere you create within yourself. If your inner world is filled with fear, urgency, and self-doubt, those emotions become the foundation from which every decision is made. You begin acting not because you are inspired, but because you are afraid of losing something. Fear narrows perception, making every challenge appear larger than it truly is. But when you relax, even without changing your circumstances, your mind becomes more receptive, flexible, and capable of recognizing solutions that anxiety could never see. There is a quiet confidence that emerges when you no longer feel the need to control every outcome. This confidence is not built on guarantees or certainty. It grows from the realization that your value does not depend on immediate success, and that life often unfolds through processes beyond conscious understanding. Instead of fighting every delay or resisting every unexpected turn, you begin cooperating with the natural rhythm of growth. Patience replaces panic, trust replaces obsession, and your actions become guided by clarity instead of emotional chaos. Relaxation, then, is not a retreat from your dreams. It is the state that allows your dreams to be pursued without destroying your inner peace. You still work, you still plan, and you still move forward, but you are no longer driven by desperation. Your mind becomes quieter, your intuition becomes stronger, and your energy is directed toward what truly matters instead of being consumed by fear. In that state, you discover a remarkable truth. The strongest person is not the one who can force life to obey, but the one who can remain calm while life unfolds in ways they cannot yet fully understand. Most people believe they make decisions through logic alone, yet much of life is guided by forces that operate beneath conscious awareness. Hidden beliefs, forgotten memories, emotional wounds, and deeply ingrained habits quietly influence how you think, what you notice, and how you respond to the world. You may consciously say, "I am ready for success, love, or abundance," while another part of your mind silently whispers, "I am not worthy," or "it will never last." This inner contradiction creates an invisible conflict that often determines the direction of your life long before you realize it. The unconscious mind does not communicate through words as much as it does through emotions, symbols, patterns, and repeated experiences. It remembers every fear you never faced, every disappointment you never fully accepted, and every painful story you continue telling yourself. These hidden impressions shape your expectations without asking for permission. When you repeatedly expect rejection, you become more sensitive to signs of rejection. When you secretly fear failure, you begin avoiding opportunities that could lead to success. The world seems to confirm your beliefs, but often it is your unconscious perception guiding what you notice and how you respond. Imagine walking through a dense forest while carrying a lantern covered with dark cloth. The forest itself has not changed, but your ability to see has become limited. The unconscious works in much the same way. It filters reality according to your deepest emotional patterns. Two people can experience the same situation and leave with completely different conclusions because each is seeing through a different inner lens. One notices possibility, while the other sees only danger. The difference is not always the external world. It is the invisible world within. This is why genuine transformation begins from the inside rather than the outside. You cannot simply force new results while leaving old fears untouched. As your hidden beliefs become conscious, they begin losing their power over you. The emotions you once avoided become easier to understand, and the stories that once defined your identity no longer control your future. Instead of reacting automatically to life, you begin responding with greater awareness, wisdom, and emotional freedom. The unconscious is no longer your silent master, it becomes your greatest teacher. When your inner world begins to heal, the outer world often appears to change as well. New opportunities seem to arrive, healthier relationships become possible, and challenges no longer feel overwhelming. It is not because reality has suddenly become kinder, but because you are no longer trapped by the invisible barriers that once limited your vision. As fear gives way to trust and confusion gives way to clarity, what once seemed impossible begins to feel natural. The greatest transformation is not changing the world around you, it is illuminating the hidden world within, where every lasting change truly begins. There comes a moment in every meaningful journey when logic reaches its limit. The mind desperately searches for guarantees, wanting every answer before taking the next step. It asks, what if this fails? What if nothing changes? What if I'm wasting my time? These questions seem reasonable, yet they often become invisible chains that keep a person standing still. The greatest transformations in life rarely arrive with complete certainty. They begin with the courage to move forward even when the entire path cannot yet be seen. The conscious mind is designed to analyze, compare, and protect you from danger. This ability is valuable, but it also has a weakness. It judges the future using only evidence from the past. If you have experienced disappointment, rejection, or failure, your mind naturally expects those experiences to repeat themselves. It mistakes familiarity for truth. As a result, it may reject extraordinary possibilities simply because they do not fit the old story you have been living. Logic can explain what has already happened, but it cannot always predict what is waiting to emerge. This is where trust becomes a quiet but powerful force. Trust is not believing that everything will unfold exactly as you imagine. It is believing that your inner strength is greater than your fear of uncertainty. It allows you to release the exhausting need to control every outcome and instead focus on becoming the kind of person who can adapt, learn, and grow regardless of what happens. When you stop demanding certainty before taking action, you create space for unexpected opportunities that careful planning alone could never reveal. Think of a traveler crossing a mountain pass in the early morning. Thick fog hides the road ahead, making the destination impossible to see. If the traveler refuses to move until the entire path is visible, the journey will never begin. But with each careful step forward, more of the road slowly appears. Life often unfolds in exactly this way. Clarity is not always given before action, it is revealed because of action. Trust does not eliminate uncertainty, it gives you the courage to walk through it without being controlled by it. The impossible often begins where logic says to stop. This does not mean ignoring reason or abandoning wisdom. It means recognizing that not every meaningful change can be measured, predicted, or explained before it happens. Some of life's greatest opportunities appear only after you release the need to know every answer in advance. When your mind becomes calm enough to accept uncertainty, fear loses its grip, possibilities expand, and what once seemed beyond reach begins to move closer. In that quiet confidence, you discover that trusting beyond logic is not blind faith. It is the willingness to let tomorrow become greater than yesterday's limitations. Most people believe they will finally feel peaceful once life gives them everything they desire. They tell themselves, when I find the right relationship, I will relax. When I achieve success, I will feel confident. When money arrives, I will finally be happy. But this way of thinking places your emotional well-being in the hands of future circumstances. It turns peace into a reward instead of a foundation. As long as your inner state depends entirely on what happens outside of you, you remain trapped in a cycle where lasting fulfillment always seems just beyond your reach. The deeper truth is that your emotional state shapes the way you experience the world long before your circumstances begin to change. When your mind is dominated by fear, impatience, and constant comparison, every delay feels like failure, and every obstacle seems permanent. But when your inner world is rooted in gratitude, calmness, and quiet confidence, your perception changes. You become more patient, more creative, and more willing to recognize opportunities that fear once kept hidden. The outer world may look the same, yet you begin interacting with it in a completely different way. Emotional alignment does not mean pretending that pain does not exist or forcing yourself to feel positive every moment of the day. Genuine alignment is the practice of acknowledging difficult emotions without allowing them to define your identity. You can feel disappointment without becoming hopeless. You can experience uncertainty without surrendering to fear. You can face temporary setbacks while still believing that your future is not determined by your present circumstances. This emotional maturity creates an inner stability that cannot easily be shaken by external events. Think of a calm lake reflecting the sky on a clear morning. When the water is still, every detail becomes visible with remarkable clarity. But when the surface is disturbed by constant waves, even the brightest reflection becomes distorted. The human mind functions in much the same way. A restless emotional state distorts judgment, amplifies fear, and clouds intuition. A peaceful emotional state allows wisdom, creativity, and insight to rise naturally. The answers you have been searching for are often hidden beneath the noise of your own emotional turbulence. When you learn to create peace before results appear, something extraordinary begins to happen. You stop living as though your happiness is waiting somewhere in the future and start experiencing it in the present moment. From that place, your actions become more intentional, your relationships become healthier, and your decisions become wiser. Success no longer feels like a desperate attempt to fill an inner emptiness. It becomes the natural expression of a mind that is already whole. And when your inner world no longer depends on external validation, even the impossible begins to feel like a future you are fully prepared to receive. Every extraordinary transformation begins long before the outside world can recognize it. People often believe that impossible dreams become real because of luck, perfect timing, or rare opportunities. But the truth is far more subtle. Before a new reality appears externally, it is first born within the mind. It begins as a quiet shift in perception, a new belief about what is possible, and a willingness to let go of the identity that has been shaped by fear and limitation. The greatest miracles are rarely sudden events. They are the visible results of an invisible inner transformation. For years, many people carry stories that quietly define the boundaries of their lives. They repeat phrases like, "I always fail," "Nothing ever works out for me," or "People like me never succeed." These beliefs become so familiar that they feel like facts rather than interpretations. The unconscious mind accepts these repeated stories as instructions, influencing decisions, habits, and emotional reactions without conscious awareness. As long as the old identity remains unchanged, even new opportunities are often approached with the same fear that created past disappointments. True change begins the moment you question the story you have been telling yourself. Instead of asking, "Why is life against me?" you begin asking, "Who would I become if I no longer believed this fear?" That single question opens the door to transformation. It shifts your attention away from external obstacles and toward the hidden patterns within. As your inner dialogue changes, your posture changes, your decisions become more courageous, and your actions begin reflecting possibility instead of doubt. What once felt impossible starts to lose its emotional power over you. Imagine a sculptor standing before a massive block of stone. To everyone else, it appears to be nothing more than an ordinary rock. Yet the sculptor already sees the masterpiece hidden within. Every careful strike of the chisel removes only what does not belong. In the same way, your deepest potential has never been missing. It has simply been covered by fear, insecurity, limiting beliefs, and the constant need for certainty. Personal growth is not about becoming someone completely different. It is about removing everything that prevents your authentic self from emerging. When the transformation inside is complete, the outside world inevitably begins to reflect it. You notice opportunities that once escaped your attention, attract relationships built on mutual respect, and make decisions with confidence instead of hesitation. Challenges no longer seem like proof that you are failing. They become part of the process of becoming stronger. The impossible was never waiting somewhere beyond your reach. It was waiting for the moment you stopped identifying with your limitations. The greatest manifestation is not merely receiving what you desire, but becoming the person who can naturally create, recognize, and embrace it with calm confidence.